Get a better essay? All right. It has been said, into every life a little rain must fall. But I believe that some lives have had a major time of flooding. My parents divorced when I was a sophomore in high school, but even today I can still feel the pain and struggle that I experienced at that time. Every day when I came back from school, neither of my parents were at home, not at work, because my mom would go somewhere and my dad would stalk her. It's serious, and she's decided to share it. So you have to be aware of when you share something that somebody else is going to read it. Does that make sense? If you share something personal, this is not a journal writing experience. You are writing for an audience of people who you want to admit you to college. They would come home and fight, yell at each other in front of me, and their voices would gradually get louder, and the argument would go on for hours. Instead of doing my homework, I would cover my ears and cry in my room. I felt tears were my only friends at that time because they not only understood my emotions, but also never abandoned me. Whenever I'm sad, they were there. When it came to dinner time, neither of my parents would cook, and I have no memory of having a family time with my parents during that period of time. Whenever I saw other people having a blessed family time, I felt so envious of them. This kind of tortuous lifestyle lasted for months until my parents were finally divorced. My mom moved out and I started living with my dad. Whenever he mentioned about my mom, I could feel the hatred that came from his emotions. My dad would ask me to do all sorts of crucial business for my mom, and whenever I refused him, he would transplant all his indignation on me and would force me to hate my mom too. One day I received a call. "Hello, it's my mom." Once again, I bursted into tears. Through our conversation, my mom asked me, "How have I been?" She asked me if I'm happy. I said yes, but how could I be happy? I still remember that conversation and every single word that she told me. "I am sorry, my dear child. I know that you went through many sufferings. Mom is fine. Don't worry about me. How are you doing so far in school? No matter what happened, don't let it drag your grades down, because to go to college is your only way out. Your father and I are both people of failure. The only one that you can depend on is yourself. Don't live your life like mine. Study hard and live a better life." My mom's word remind me of the blue-collar lives of my family, whereas my dad is a truck driver and my mom has no real job. I remember one time when I went to the supermarket with my dad, he picked up one pack of pastry. He looked at it for a moment and then he put it back on the shelf. I asked him, why didn't he buy? He said it was too expensive. That pack of pastry is $5. Thus, I forced myself to get back on track. I started to work hard and became full of enthusiasm for learning. I never thought that to start working as hard as a junior was late, because I am willing to spend more time than others. Sometimes the latecomers surpass the early starters. Although I may not be standing on the same starting line as many other excellent applicants, I endeavor to run as fast as I can. And even if the sweat drips, even if the muscles ache, I will never give up. Although now I am just one of the many ordinary applicants out of many outstanding ones, but my ordinary condition now is not predictive of an ordinary performance in the future. Those who have never come across difficulties are often lacking of the capacity to deal with difficulties. I understand that there are many green, robust, and straight saplings competing with me for a chance to be fostered to become a great, lofty, and strong tree under the professional nurture. Oh, this was for USC. Therefore, I will overcome the difficulties as I grow, work diligently as I grow to appreciate USC for trusting me, and I will eventually fulfill the expectations. Some trees can only be used for firewood, while some others can be used as backbones for a great building. Someday I will make all those who pass me by praise my beauty, my firmness, and indomitable character, as well as my success. Sometime, the college who once cultivated me will feel proud of me. She's incredibly honest in this essay, but I think the essay is missing something. What do you think the essay is missing? Think about that for a minute. Do you agree that we see her suffering? Do we see the suffering in there? But do we see her working through the suffering and actually making sense of what she's done with the suffering? So if you're going to write about a hardship, and a lot of us have had hardships, or if you're going to write about a setback, or if you're going to write anything in your life, if you don't talk about who you are now, I don't know why they want to know how she's become a strong tree. Does that make sense? You can use that metaphor if you want to, and an image of yourself as a tree or flooding. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. But you need to show how you have worked your way through. And I asked her, I sent her an email back and I said, what are your activities? She's worked as a tutor to a kid who moved here recently from China. She worked very briefly, she worked for a semester in a museum. And she's volunteered for one other activity. I asked her to think for one of those activities, how would that reveal how she has begun to change her life and turn it around? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any other advice or anything else that you'd want to know? So you need to help the reader understand who you are. Does that make sense? Does anybody here have any questions for me or any other things that you'd like to know about college essays? I am willing to answer any question that you can have. If you don't, what I'd like you to do before I close is I would like you to turn to the person next to you and share one thing that you've learned today that you can try to take with you as you begin to revise essays that you're working on. What's something that you're thinking about? Okay, so you need to bring a story into it? All right, thank you. One more thing before you go. Oh, microphone. The problem of interactive activities is getting kids out of them. I teach teachers. It's always a problem, right? It works though. All right, so what I'd like somebody to do is to volunteer something that you're thinking about now about essays that you didn't understand before. Who could share one thing that you're now thinking about that, not about you. You don't have to share, oh, I'm going to do this in my essay. But what's one thing that you may consider now doing as you write your essays? Making a list of qualities, thinking of examples. The more storytelling that you do, I call these stories with morals. There has to be a moral to the stories that you tell. You have to know that you need to distinguish yourself in order to get the UC reader to actually put a mark on your paper that gives you the full credit for the essays. If you don't have any other questions, Ms. McKay, do you have any questions for me? Any of the teachers have questions that maybe I could answer that I forgot to cover? Or counselors, any questions for me? Sometimes I go a little fast. I covered it? I got it? So what I'm willing to do, if you get...
I do have one
Okay.
question. On the two prompts, completely different, that's okay.
Completely different essay topics. They should not be the same story. But you could talk about a passion of yours that you've revealed in two different ways. I've had a kid who talks about, community service. I think it needs to be two separate stories. They are asking for two separate stories. The common application is asking for one story and one small example of something else. But the UCs want two completely separate stories. They do not want to feel sorry for you unless you can tell them how you have worked through feeling sorry for yourself. But I do believe that each and every one of you has the right to go to college. So if you want to send me your essays for me to take a look at, I'm willing to look at them. All right, thank you.